I'm scared of my Muslim husband. I think he love-bombed me so that he could pound on me. I, 29, met my, now, husband, 29, in early 2021 via a dating app, but we had mutual friends already, same university. I quickly fell for him and after a year we got engaged. 2 months later, we had our Katbiktab, Nikah, Islamic ceremony. It was a very small, immediate family only. Our wedding reception is in 1 week, 4.5 months after the Katbiktab. There is obviously a fair amount of stress, as we're stretched pretty thin to make the wedding work shortly after purchasing our first home. My husband is in a new job, and I'm in a famously high-stress job. I definitely acknowledge I have not been my best self lately, trying to make ends meet and get myself through each day frankly. On to the red flag. My husband is a charismatic, funny guy. He's loud. As am I. His personality has been something I've loved about him since I met him. But lately, there's less humor and more commentary on world politics, sometimes right-wing conspiracy, or what I would call conspiracy, type stuff. It's preachy. When I engage, it quickly becomes a fight, seemingly regardless of the stance I take. When I take issue with his tone, personal attacks, I get yelled at or told I'm purposefully vilifying him. He's starting to shout at me more often. Today it was in front of his whole family. It was humiliating. I cried. It was over me pushing back when his family told me they had already done the seating chart for their guests despite not having the entire guest list. I did not think I was being rude, but I just explained that I needed to work off the draft I had, because I knew it had all guests on it. I was reassuring her she could rearrange tables if I got stuff wrong. My husband interjected himself from the next room shouting at me for saying his mom didn't know everyone that was coming. Then he shouted that he wasn't shouting, we were shouting. I know I shouldn't have, but I called him out on his immaturity. I called him out for yelling in front of our nephews, 9, 7, 1, who were there. I told him to stay out of it if he was going to yell. We finished the seating chart and I left to stay with my parents. We are visiting from out of town. It's been 5 hours since the incident and I haven't heard from my husband. When I left I gave everyone a quick hug goodbye including my husband. He didn't walk me to my car. He's been shouting at me more at home too. I avoid certain topics altogether. It got physical once and he put his hand on my throat. We had a large verbal altercation where I was upset as I felt he hadn't consulted with me before leaving his last job, and I was feeling huge financial pressure. Catch is, he had mentioned it to me already and I had been supportive of him, then forgotten. I often don't eat enough and my memory suffers. I'm working on that. I was yelling at him and he was yelling at me and he grabbed me, immediately let go, and walked away. When we talked about it, I was furious and disgusted. He pointed out that while it was awful of him to do, he did what he was supposed to do, stopped, walked away. Basically he didn't let it go any further than scaring me. I didn't have any injury from it, I was just upset. It was still wrong that he did it, and he has apologized, but I do recognize he must have been exceedingly frustrated as I was yelling at him for something I had cheerfully accepted only a couple of days before. Sometimes he pushes me, which I find super embarrassing in public. He shoves me out of the way if I go to pay at the store, despite us often alternating who pays. I have verbalized that my parents don't treat each other that way. I have told him I don't want to be treated that way. I have explicitly said don't shout at me, don't push me, and threatened to involve his older brothers. I'm sure I'm extra upset right now for a handful of reasons: wedding stress, menses/not praying, work stress, but I'm starting to worry that I'm being willfully blind here. Can I let this slide and pray for change? What else can I try to encourage change? Does this sound like a stress response to you? What would you advise your sister to do in this situation?